I decided to pursue a master's in the US. I got into a reputed university, enrolled in the course I wanted, and left home with huge excitement and a suitcase full of hopes. I landed in Raleigh in North Carolina on a cold winter night and took an hour-long cab ride across the quiet city to my new apartment and hoped to start a new chapter the next morning. But the biggest highlight of my trip ended up having a giant slice of cheesy pepperoni pizza in the New York airport, looking at the skyscraper through the glass panels, while I was waiting to board a plane back to India just 7 days later. Because I had quit. And this wasn't my first time quitting. 5 years before this, the first time I left my hometown in 17 years to do my undergraduate, I quit. A couple of years before that, the first job I ever started, I quit. And all of these were within less than 10 days. So when I came back to India from the US, I was absolutely furious with myself because the first time I quit, it felt like a fluke. The second time, I called it bad luck. But now I realize that it wasn't just a coincidence, but it was a pattern. And unlike previous instances, this time I had burnt a lot of money, burdening both me and my family. So I wanted to understand what the hell was going on. The obvious one was that each time there was a major change in my life, I simply couldn't adapt to it. Whether me going to a new city, going to a new country, or entering a new phase of life, I wasn't simply able to adapt. So with some help, I went a level deeper to understand if there were any other similarities between all these incidents, and one common theme emerged, that I wasn't afraid before any of these changes. I did not let fear get to me whatsoever. And why? Because I believed that I was told by the world all my life that not to be afraid of anything and especially not to fear change. And like all of you believed, I also thought it would hold me back from stepping out and growing. Therefore, before all of these changes, I was excited, optimistic, because I would put a lot of hard work to get there. But the lack of fear got me so excited about going to the new that I never once paused to think what would happen once I actually arrive. The lack of fear also blinded me to my personal weaknesses and vulnerabilities, that it left me completely unprepared for the new uncertain reality that awaited me time and time again. Therefore, when I landed in the US with all the excitement, the minute I landed, it started evaporating very slowly. I remember collecting my baggage from the belt in the airport, and with every step I took towards the airport exit, my morale started sinking. For the next few days, even the simplest and essential tasks seemed undoable and difficult, and slowly I started feeling emotionally paralyzed. I wasn't able to eat for the first few days. I wasn't feeling hungry either. I sat in my room all day looking at my unpacked luggage with zero motivation to unpack and set things. In fact, I did not even get a SIM card for the entire duration I was there, which was the first thing I was supposed to do when I landed. I thought, okay, maybe stepping out of the house might help, but with every street I went, it started getting weirder and weirder, and every student I came across there seemed to belong except for me. Overall, I felt like a stranger in a strange land, and for the first time I realized just how unprepared I was. The worst part was I could not comprehend what I was feeling at that time. I remember walking to my university campus the first day for my orientation, and all the questions that hadn't crossed my mind started appearing out of nowhere. Was this the right choice in the middle of a pandemic? Does this choice align with my larger goals, or did I just follow the herd? Will I be able to survive and stay happy so far away from home and my people? And so many more questions, which were totally sensible ones, which I should have thought and answered way before. But instead, they started hitting me one by one like arrows, leaving me deeply overwhelmed in an unfamiliar place, which led to a disgusting feeling called being unsettled. And therefore, I quit and came back to where I started. Now, imagine this with me if I was a little bit afraid of the change before leaving. Not too much, but a little. Afraid that in this new country, day and night will be different. Afraid that on tough days, I would not have my closest friends or family to go to. Afraid that as a socially shy introvert, I would have to make my friends from scratch again. Or simply afraid that in a highly competitive university, I'd have to up my game so high so that I can get a good job that pays off my 50 lakh loan? Or simply afraid of the fact that this new country could potentially become my home for the next decade or more? I'm not saying if I was afraid before, I would have quit before, but at least I would have answered all these questions in advance and prepared myself with a clear set of expectations. Because fear hates an uncertain outcome, and therefore it helps you prepare beforehand. There's a Russian saying that has been passed down through generations of hardships and wars that the Soviet Union fought, Ustrata glasa veliki, which means that fear has big eyes. That it often exaggerates the situation, but in doing so, it keeps you more alert and prepared for what lies ahead, which is extremely helpful when you step into the unknown. And human beings need help stepping into the unknown. A recent study by the American Psychological Association revealed that 54% of adults face difficulty with change. And why is that? Because as a species, as an evolved species, we are terrified of the unknown and therefore we dislike change. Our brain is constantly trying to predict what will happen next so that it can prepare our mind and our body in the most effective way possible. So therefore, when you encounter a change, the uncertainty can intensify how threatening a situation can feel, as it happened to me, as a result of which some people like me quit. The most get into a survival mode and start sacrificing performance, and only a very meager few are able to thrive and adapt to change from day one. And that's why fear is very powerful to help us thrive and adapt. Because as I said, fear hates an uncertain outcome, and the beauty is, so do all of us. Apart from just helping us adapt to change, there's another very deep significance to it. You do not get fear with every change. It only arises when the outcome of the change matters to you. Not to the world, but to you personally. Imagine the last time when you were actually afraid before a change. And think back if it really mattered to you personally. It's a yes, 100% of the time. Author of the book War of Art, Steven Pressfield, gave a very different perspective that if you fear something very much, it simply means that you want to do it badly and do it well. It gave me a completely new lens to look at my decision before. And I realized that while the prominent reason I didn't fear going to the US was because I was told not to be afraid, I realized later that an equally important 50% of the reason was that I wasn't personally excited about a master's in electrical engineering to begin with. I did a bachelor's in the field, scored amazing grades, and then I just followed the herd. So when I came back to India, I had almost 6 months to reflect and think what I actually want to do, and realized that I always envisioned myself as an entrepreneur. I like doing new things, setting up new things, and figured that an MBA would be a much more suitable path to get there. And this time I decided to do it in India. So I applied, got accepted, and this time the outcome truly mattered to me. So I was, with all the positive emotion that I experienced, I was also afraid by not listening to the world, unlike before. I was afraid that I'm going to join a new college and a founding class, that I ensured that I double-checked, consulted, and researched extensively until I convinced myself that yes, it is worth it. I was afraid that yet again I need to go to a new city and start adapting, and this time Mumbai, that I made an elaborate week-by-week plan of what to do, what to explore, and people to talk to when I felt lost. I was afraid that as an introvert, I may not be able to make friends initially to begin with, but I mentally prepared myself that it does not matter how many friends I start the course with, but it matters how many I leave with. I was also afraid that as a fresher, I would not be able to contribute to classroom discussions. I made a list of books to read and ensured that throughout my MBA, at some point, I did a part-time internship while I was in college. And because fear has big eyes, I was able to see my weaknesses through it, wide, clear, and specific. So then, when these issues arose later, and most of them did, unlike before, I was not taken aback, shocked, or surprised. I knew exactly what to do. Look, telling you that I was afraid may not sound great, but today I'm an MBA graduate from the same very college, and it had helped me adapt so easily. I did not have any issues, and it was one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life. Look, all of this does not mean that next time when you face a major fear, you start roaming around being scared. It simply means that if the outcome of the change matters to you, fear arises on its own. And all you have to do is let yourself experience it. Because when you look at the metrics, when the outcome is important to you and you don't let yourself experience a natural amount of fear, you risk going in unprepared. And with every uncertainty that arises, you start getting into a constant survival mode, which as a result, you'll start sacrificing performance. But on the other hand, if you let yourself experience those natural fears, that's where the possibility of thriving occurs. Because the fear that you experience is not just an emotion, it is your data. As author Susan David puts it, all your emotions are not just feelings, they are information. Your fear is your data that can exactly tell you what aspects of the change you need to be worried about. And it is usually a combination of what things you will miss from the present and what in the future seems daunting to you. And believe me, we do not know it on top of our heads. We need the help of fear as data to tell us that, because it knows us in and out from the day you were born, because it has been going through each and every experience that you've gone through in life. And to be honest, it knows you more than anyone else. And if companies can purchase this data, I can unarguably say it will be the most expensive form of data ever purchased. But the key differentiator lies in whether you use or not use this data. Because when you don't use it as your data to motivate yourself and prepare, you risk getting overwhelmed by all this fear and getting into a zone of inaction. And it can possibly lead to numbness even before you start the change. Which brings me to the question, then how do you use this data to bring certainty to your change and your outcomes? It's simple. Start listening and reading into your fears and list down what exactly are the issues that you're worried about. And start prioritizing them in the order of the most fear to the least. And then we can work on starting to bring certainty to each and every one of them, which can be done in two ways. The first way is to double check, research, and consult. And do it again and again until you bring certainty to it and convince yourself that, hey, it's no more and going to be an issue for me. The second one is to make a plan. Make a plan at least for the first 21 days. Dr. Maxwell's theory of it takes 21 days to get used to new behaviors or habits, I believe applies to change as well. Make a plan of what to do exactly when these fears arise later. It can be as silly as you want, but the more specific, the better. My MBA flatmate had a sticky note on his wall that had the best restaurants to order butter chicken from in Mumbai in case he missed home-cooked food. And as his flatmate, I know how much he missed it from the sheer number of butter chicken boxes we collected on our kitchen, and it also helped him. The point is, it is possible to bring certainty to it by listening into what your data is telling you. I want to leave you with this. Adapting to change is not easy. We all have our unique difficulties, varying levels of weaknesses to it, and they start arising later in the journey. But when you start looking at your fear as your data and use it as a motivator to prepare yourself beforehand, you make the process a lot more easier. Because when I started looking at my fear as my data and used it, it changed my life and it changed the way I look at the world now. I'm able to cope faster, I'm able to cope better, and from being a quitter, it transformed me to someone who is now eagerly looking forward for the next change to prepare myself. Therefore, the next time there's a major change in your life and your fear kicks in, ask yourself this question, what is my data telling me? So that you will stop surviving change and start thriving and succeeding faster. My name is Gurucharan. I am still scared of change. I still love a cheesy pizza, but I have stopped quitting in my life. Thank you.